A loud thud echoed through her three-story home in Berlin, Germany. The year was 1938. Our once proud and powerful city of diversity was under a new rule. It was during this era that most of the nation were led to believe that the minorities were responsible for the failed economy. Scientists, doctors, teachers, lawyers, professors, politicians. All of them were led astray by the intolerant speeches from our Suedo-loving leaders. I would listen to them on the ham radio while Ada sat beside me. One would hear a large amount of cheering, followed by booming semi-slurred voices of extremists, blaming others for the fall of this great nation. I recall a column in the newspaper, which featured a report about the rising of crimes against the minorities. Most Germans cheered for these crimes. Disgusting, I know. Sometimes the perpetrators were caught, only to be released back into society, as if nothing happened. Most of the crimes occurred in the ghettos. However, they started occurring in the higher class districts as well. This gained my attention. It had appeared that Etta was one of the few people who kept her sanity and common sense. I would watch her tears trickle down the side of her soft pink cheeks. She overheard conversations of her neighbors and visiting family who discussed the prejudice against the persecuted. Those damn long-nosed beasts are responsible for the bank's depression. My wife heard this statement more often. I used to sympathize with her, but I started distrusting them as well. Etta detected my faulty logic and sanity, and would remind me to think outside the box, not to ride on the bandwagon. I loved her. Etta was a beautiful blonde. She had the attractiveness that one would see in an American beauty pageant. She wore her hair in a bun. Sometimes the hair would hang past her shoulders, with one strand of hair covering the left side of her face. She wore the best of the dresses that I could afford with my salary as a doctor. She was the talk of the town, envy of the other women who were just as attractive and classy as her. Honey, what was that crash I heard earlier? I rose from an expensive red Persian chair and walked around the living room. Our home was rather expensive, as we resided in an upscale part of Berlin. The living room was lined with various books from around the world, pictures of our ancestors, dressed in the finest of clothing, a hardwood floor, gray walls, and a blue door with a golden handle that led to the outside world. Oh, nothing, Ada responded, as she made her way towards me from the kitchen. I was thinking, we should move. She paused in her steps. With the rising crime, devastated economy, and all the international violence across Europe. Oh, let's leave for America. She grinned, while winsomely bobbing her head up and down. With a smirk accompanied by a raised brow, I shook my head. I saw her tear-filled eyes. She was unhappy. I knew she wanted to leave this country. Papers had to be filed. The community's officials had to register us out of the area, then be registered and filed by papers entering to the States. A passport was needed, etc. That was too much hassle to go through at the moment, not to mention I could not have left this country, my nation, my home, a place that deserved the sacrifice of my life if it came to it. A heavy thud echoed through the house once more. The sound came from under the floorboards. I followed the sound until I heard a heavy knock at the door. Who is it? I ventured towards the basement. The hallway was chilly. The hallway had an eerie presence. Something in the back of my mind told me not to open the basement's door. Ida had opened the front door. The night sky was the color of a purple grape, a smell of pine from the forest behind our neighborhood, pushed into our abode by the cool winds. The street lamps were on. The fire within them danced about as people made way to the safety of their abodes. There, I stood by the basement door. My hand turned the knob. The lock clicked. At the front door stood an intimidating officer, accompanied by several other officers. Behind them, Tabor Guthenberg stood with a rifle in his hands. He was an asshole. He and I had grown up together. He envied me for obvious reasons. I was smarter, far more handsome, and achieved more in life than he.
By the order of a Protestant, it is our duty to have a perimeter check of the area for undesirables to be sent to the designated area.
The officer bellowed. His hazy yellow eyes squinted as he scanned the room. At the same time, I opened the basement door. Countless eyes stared and blinked. I quickly shut the door behind me, pressed my back into the door as my heart fluttered like a hummingbird. My bladder loosened and stomach rumbled in nervousness. I felt my soul wither within my ribcage. Ada and I were going to die if they found out who was in her basement. I sweated profusely with full understanding that this was treason. I made my way towards the door. I placed my hand behind it. I swallowed my fear and told the officers to hold on for a second before they entered into our home.
Mr. Heinsberg, what's wrong?
The officer gave me a flummoxed look. Nothing at all, gentlemen. I have to tell my wife to get dressed, so that she will be more presentable for company. I grinned. I shut the door and locked it. Ida looked at me uneasily. Both my mind and body boiled with rage. I wanted to strangle her. She was too generous, always helped the less fortunate. But this was too much. I placed my hand on her arm, pulled her towards the basement door. She tried to resist, but I ended up dragging her like a rag doll. I swung the door open as my heart pounded. There, standing in front of us, down the stairs, were 30 people, huddled with one another as sardines in a can. 25 of them were Jews, 2 were Slavic, and 2 dark-skinned Negroes, all crouching in fear. "You crazy little bitch, what were you thinking?" I tugged her close to me for an answer. "Don't you know this is treason?" Spit flew out of my mouth. "We will die for this, you fucking idiot," I choked. "Please," Ada begged. "The tunnel, remember?" She pointed to it behind, the large black dresser on the wall. "Please, these people need our help." "Oh hell, most of them are our friends." Tears poured down her face. "You're a man of logic and reason. I understand. Help them. Do it for me." She tightly held onto my light black jacket, looked deep into my earth-hued eyes with her ocean blue pupils. She gave me that face. I could not resist. I had always complained about the crimes that occurred in this once proud nation, and now I would have the chance to liberate the victims who faced oppression. But my morals of telling the truth haunted me. I was not a theist, not a man of religion, but this was out of fear of social persecution. I kept quiet and attended church like everyone else. Just this once, I had to tell a lie to save a few lives, including our own. I placed my hand on my forehead. "Fine, go upstairs and distract the men. I'll see what I can do." I glanced at the terrified people in front of me. Their eyes were full of hope. I knew most of them. They were professionals in the field of work and well respected. Now they were the most hated. My wife ran up the stairs and towards the door. I pushed through the ocean of people who were too afraid to move over. I pulled the dresser from its position, which revealed a large hole in the wall, a deep and dark tunnel that led to the borders of Germany. They would be on their own after they had navigated through the tunnel. One by one, the people rushed quietly through the opening of the tunnel as mice escaping from a cat. I wanted to shed some tears. This was horrible. People of proud honor ran as mice because of a corrupted government scapegoats them for their own irresponsibility. I heard my wife leading the men into the kitchen. Their heavy footsteps stopped above. A little red-haired Jewish girl in a brown dress and black jacket walked up to me. She was knee-high and adorable as a kitten. She had a doll in her hand and placed it into my hand with a warm smile before heading into the tunnel with their mother. The basement door opened. I heard footsteps. They sounded similar to falling trees. My heart pounded. Would they fall for it? I had faith in a God that I believed otherwise to be a myth for the first time. Funny how some people start to believe.
Mr. Heinsberg.
A heavy voice bellowed behind me. I turned around. Yes?
Will you be coming to the church tomorrow night? There will be a sermon by the priest concerning the vision he had about your coming threats.
The officer smiled. Yes. Yes, I will. I smiled, as I hoped him and his flunkies would leave. He turned around and made his way up the stairs. The dresser was already on the wall as it concealed the tunnel. I took a deep breath of relief. Afterward, I turned the lights off and made my way up as well. I closed the door behind me. My wife led the men outside with some warm baked cookies wrapped in the finest cloth. She shut the door after waving goodbye to the men. We embraced each other. So glad that all went well. My spirit lifted. I had knowledge that I prevented future death of the innocent. A few months later, I decided to move out of Germany. We traveled west and across the seas to America by ship. We were greeted by a giant ocean-colored statue with a crown. It was a new start for us. I just could not take it anymore. The once proud nation that I had desired to serve was not the same. Germany had turned from a noble nation to that of a barbaric nation. I hoped that it would one day return to its former glory. But until then, this place, this wonderful place, is my new home. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. Leave a comment below if you want. If you've enjoyed it, hit the red subscribe button below, as more stories will be uploaded to my channel. Thank you, and goodbye.